What happens when a controversial prince steps into the lion's den of American talk TV, and everything spirals out of control? Tonight, we're breaking down the explosive confrontation that had social media ablaze. Prince Harry, Bill Maher, one stage. No filters. And by the time it was over, the entire room had gone cold. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments. Do celebrities deserve privacy or accountability? The studio lights burned bright as Bill Maher leaned back, trademark smirk in place. Across from him sat Prince Harry, adjusting his jacket, his body language already tight with tension. The crowd buzzed with curiosity. This wasn't just another Hollywood guest. This was royalty in exile. "So, Harry," Maher began, eyes gleaming, "you've gone from Buckingham Palace to a Montecito mansion. How's that upgrade treating you?" Harry forced a smile. "It's been liberating, actually. For the first time in my life, I can make decisions without asking permission from an institution centuries behind the times." Maher leaned forward. The trap was set. "Liberating, huh? That's interesting, because it looks to me like you traded one institution for another. Instead of answering to the Queen, now it's Netflix producers and Spotify XX. What's the real difference?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Harry's jaw clenched. "There's a big difference between choosing your partners and having your life dictated by outdated protocol." "Right," Maher replied dryly. "But here's what I don't get. You had unimaginable privilege. You traveled the world, had global influence, and you walked away from all of it just to come to America and complain about how hard your life was. Don't you think that sounds just a little tone deaf?" Harry's voice stiffened. "With respect, you're oversimplifying. Yes, I had privilege, but no privacy, no autonomy. I watched my mother get hunted and destroyed by that same system. I wasn't going to let history repeat itself with my wife and kids." Maher's tone shifted, momentarily serious. "Your mother, Princess Diana, was beloved around the world. She used her voice to champion AIDS patients, landmine victims. She made her impact within the system. Why couldn't you?" Harry's grip tightened on the armrests. "Because the system killed her, Bill. The media obsession, the constant harassment, the paparazzi. I wasn't going to play along while the same machine tore my family apart." "But here's the part that doesn't add up," Maher said, voice rising. "You say you wanted privacy, but then you do a tell, all with Oprah. You drop a best-selling memoir, a Netflix docuseries. That's not privacy, that's a PR campaign." Harry leaned in. "Sometimes, you have to tell your story before the tabloids tell it for you." "Or," Maher shot back, "you just want to cash in on the drama. Let's be honest. If you really wanted to walk away, you could have done it quietly. But you didn't. You kept the title. You built an empire off the royal name." The crowd fell silent. The air got heavier. "I'm not trading on anything," Harry snapped. "I'm sharing my truth about a system that chews people up and spits them out." Maher raised his eyebrows. Air quotes. "Your truth." That phrase right there, it drives me insane. There's not your truth and my truth. There's just truth. And here's some truth for you. People in this country are working 3 jobs just to survive. They don't have Netflix deals. They don't have security details. So when they hear a millionaire prince talk about trauma from a castle, yeah, it's hard to sympathize." Harry's face reddened. "You think I don't care about people struggling? I've spent my life working with veterans, mental health charities, disaster zones. Yeah, Maher cut in. And then you sold it to streaming platforms like it was content." The camera caught it, the flicker in Harry's eyes. Anger, hurt, something breaking. "You're not interested in truth," he said quietly. "You just want a headline." "But I didn't come here to be your punchline, Bill." He stood up. "I came here to have a conversation, not be dissected for ratings." The room froze. Maher tried to keep his smirk, but the tension had swallowed the air. Harry adjusted his jacket, turned to the audience. If you think choosing to walk away from generational power and money is easy, try it sometime. If you think telling the truth is about selling drama, you've clearly never had to survive it. And with that, Prince Harry walked off stage. No applause. No outro music. Just stunned silence. Social media exploded. Clips spread like wildfire. Maher's Harry began trending globally. Some praised Maher for being tough. Others accused him of weaponizing cynicism to humiliate a guest. The line between journalism and spectacle blurred. So what do you think? Was Prince Harry's reaction justified? Did Bill Maher ask fair questions? Or did he cross a line? Sound off in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because this confrontation, it's only the beginning. And remember, sometimes, the fight for truth gets personal. Bill Maher leaned in, the studio lights catching the glint in his eye. Yes, it's great you help people. But let's be honest. You've also spent a lot of time talking about your problems. On platforms that pay you millions. There's a fine line between advocacy and self-promotion. Harry's jaw clenched. I'm not self-promoting. I'm trying to break cycles of trauma and generational pain. That's not performance, it's personal. Maher laughed. Sharp, unkind. Break trauma? Harry, you're a prince. You've had more access to therapy, healing, and security than 99% of the planet. Most people dealing with trauma don't have the 14 million mansion to recover in. The Harry's eyes narrowed. Money doesn't solve everything. Bill. No. Maher replied, but it sure as hell makes it easier. And let's call this what it is. You didn't break the cycle. You just rebranded it. Your family dysfunction is now a global content strategy. That's not healing. That's monetizing misery. The room went completely silent. Even the cameraman seemed frozen. Harry leaned forward, voice low and burning. You have no idea what it's like. The pressure, the scrutiny. Every step watched since birth. Every word twisted. Every silence turned into scandal. You're right, Maher said, his tone suddenly cold. I've never had that life. But I've also never had a royal trust fund, security teams, or dinner with world leaders. Everyone has problems. Harry, but not everyone has the means. You had to deal with them. The tension cracked the air like static. Harry's face darkened. Maher looked almost pleased. Look, Harry said, trying to steady himself. I get it, your brand is provocation. But what you're doing right now, this cynical dissection, it's exactly what drove me away. The need to tear people down, to mock any attempt at vulnerability. Maher raised an eyebrow. So now I'm the villain, not the guy who aired his family's dirty laundry on international television. I'm just asking the questions millions of people want to ask. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe stop booking interviews. Harry's voice cracked. You're not scrutinizing. You're dismissing. You're questioning my motives, attacking my mother's memory, and mocking serious issues like mental health and racism. Whoa, Maher held up his hands. Let's not twist things. I said your mother was beloved. She was, and we weren't even talking about racism until you threw that in. It's all connected, Bill. Harry snapped. The way the media treated Meghan, the silence from the institution, and now people like you, minimizing our pain because it doesn't fit your narrative. Maher leaned back, genuinely taken aback. People like me? What does that mean? Harry didn't blink. People who benefit from systems of privilege, then ridicule those who speak out against them. You don't take any of this seriously because actually engaging would mean reflecting on your own place in that system. Maher's voice sharpened. I've been criticizing institutions for decades. Government, religion, corporations. The difference is, I don't get millions of dollars to do it. And I don't wrap it in a victim narrative. I never claimed to be a victim. Harry fired back. Really? Because all I've heard for years is how unfair the royal family was, how cruel the press was, how tough it is being born into wealth and global fame. At what point do you take responsibility for your choices? Harry stood up, the mask slipping. His voice rose. I did take responsibility. I walked away. I gave up titles, duties, security, family. I did what I had to do to protect my wife and kids. Oh, come on. Maher scoffed, standing too. You walked away and landed a 100 million Netflix deal. That's not sacrifice, Harry. That's a pivot. You didn't renounce power. You rebranded it. The audience squirmed in their seats. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a confrontation. A slow burn explosion now burning white hot. Harry pointed directly at Maher. You know what your real problem is, Bill. Maher didn't flinch. You pretend to be the voice of reason, the edgy truth teller. But all you're doing is dressing cynicism up as insight. You don't want answers. You want blood. Harry's voice was firm, his eyes locked on Maher. You can't stand that someone had the courage to walk away from a broken system, while you sit here mocking it from the safety of your studio. Maher scoffed. A broken system. Harry, you're talking about your own family, your grandparents, your father, your brother. Are you seriously calling them corrupt? I'm calling the institution corrupt. Harry snapped. Not the individuals, but the structure itself. It's toxic. Maher shook his head. But the people or the institution. You can't separate the two. And here's what really gets me. If that system is so toxic, why are you still calling yourself Prince Harry? Why are you and Meghan still using royal titles? If you really wanted a clean break, wouldn't you give them up? Harry hesitated. His mouth opened, then closed. It's complicated. Maher leaned forward, relentless. No, it's actually pretty simple. You want the prestige without the responsibility. You want to be royal when it pays and just Harry when it's convenient. That's not true, Harry shot back. Isn't it? Maher said, his tone cold. When you're signing deals with Netflix, you're the Duke of Sussex. When people criticize you, you're just a regular guy who wants privacy. Which is it? Harry began pacing, visibly agitated. You're twisting my words. No, Maher replied. I'm just highlighting the contradictions. You say you want privacy, but you do a globally televised interview. You say you left for your family's safety, but then publish intimate details in a 20 million memoir. You talk about service, while charging speaking fees that most nonprofits couldn't dream of affording. I shared those details to give context. Harry replied, his voice rising. To explain why we had to leave. Maher didn't miss a beat. Or maybe you shared them because it made you a bestseller. Let's not kid ourselves. You built a brand around being the royal who escaped. And that brand, it's worth a fortune. Harry froze, eyes blazing. You have no idea what it's like. To have your entire life dissected, every move analyzed, every motive questioned by people who don't know you. Actually, Maher replied calmly, I do know. I've been in the public eye for decades. The difference is, I chose this life. You were born into yours, and then you chose to stay in the spotlight. On your terms. I didn't choose to be born into the royal family. No, Maher said, but you chose what to do with it. And what you did was monetize grievance while claiming you just want to be left alone. Do you see why people call that hypocritical? Harry's fists clenched at his sides. I'm done with this conversation. Maher leaned back, voice dripping with sarcasm. Of course you are. That's what you do, right? When things get uncomfortable, you walk away. I'm not walking away from anything that matters, Harry growled. Maher raised an eyebrow. Really? You walked away from your military service, your patronages, your relationship with your brother. At some point, Harry, you stop running and start facing things like an adult. The room went still. That last line hit like a slap. Harry's entire body stiffened. His face flushed deep red. Then, quietly but firmly, like an adult, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan while you sat behind a desk telling jokes. I've worked with wounded veterans. I've started mental health initiatives. I've tried to make a difference. What have you done, besides criticize people who actually step into the fire? Maher's eyes gleamed, like a boxer smelling blood. What have I done? I've called out hypocrisy everywhere I see it, including yours. And right now, what I see is a man who can't take being challenged without turning it into a meltdown. This isn't a meltdown, Harry said, stepping closer to the desk. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. This is me standing up to a bully, a man who thinks sarcasm is truth and cruelty is wit. Maher laughed, but the warmth was gone. A bully? I'm just asking the questions. If that feels like bullying, maybe the problem isn't me. Harry leaned in, steady and furious. You don't ask questions. You push narratives. You mock pain and package it as commentary. And the second someone doesn't laugh, you call them sensitive. But here's the truth, Bill. You're afraid. Not of me, not of Megan. You're afraid of a world that's changing and leaving your brand of cynicism behind. The audience was dead silent. Even Maher didn't immediately respond. The moment hung there, heavy with something raw and unspoken. Harry leaned forward, voice tight and burning. You want to know what the real problem is? It's people like you. People who've never had to make impossible choices, sitting in judgment like you've got it all figured out. Maher straightened up, his tone condescending. Difficult choices, like whether to take the Netflix money or the Spotify money. Those kinds of struggles. The audience was dead silent. The tension was past boiling. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Harry's eyes flared. I came here to have a real conversation. About mental health, trauma, institutional failure. But all you want to do is score cheap laughs and paint me as some cartoon villain. Maher didn't flinch.
No, Harry.
You came here expecting softballs, hoping to promote your latest project and control the narrative. But that's not how this works. You don't get to rewrite reality just because it makes you uncomfortable. Harry shot back. I'm not trying to control anything. I'm trying to have a respectful dialogue. Maher's voice spiked. Respectful. You just accused me of being a parasite and suggested I've never contributed anything to society. How exactly is that respectful? Harry's patience finally snapped. Because you haven't contributed anything. All you do is tear people down. You make cruelty look clever and call it comedy. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're part of the machine that keeps people from actually healing. Maher's face reddened. Part of the problem. I've spent 30 years calling out hypocrisy, corruption, and abuse of power. The difference is, I don't ask for a 20 million check every time I speak up. And I don't whine when someone pushes back. I'm not whining, Harry said, his voice shaking. I'm defending myself from a smear campaign disguised as an interview. Everything I said came from your own words. Maher snapped. If pointing out contradictions in your story feels like an attack, maybe the problem isn't the questions. It's the story. Harry stood, visibly trembling. My story has contradictions because life has contradictions. Because when you're trying to protect your family, there's no perfect path. Sometimes you disappoint people. Sometimes you break protocol. Sometimes you leave. Maher cut in, vicious. Or sometimes you cash in. Let's be honest. You turned your pain into a brand. You didn't challenge the system. You licensed it. That was it. Harry's face twisted with fury. He pointed a trembling finger at Maher. You know what? I'm done. With this interview. With your questions. With pretending this is anything but a public humiliation dressed up as journalism. Maher's tone turned mocking. Oh, now it's a hit job. Because I didn't let you recite your PR script uninterrupted? No, Harry said coldly. Because you never wanted a conversation. You wanted a circus. You wanted to drag me out, tear me apart, and call it insight. Maher leaned against his desk, smug. If you can't answer basic questions about your choices, maybe you shouldn't be giving interviews at all. Harry's voice dropped to a whisper. Low, venomous. Maybe I shouldn't waste my time with people who made up their minds before I walked in. I haven't made up my mind, Maher replied. I'm trying to understand how someone with every advantage in life still sees himself as a victim. Harry's face went pale, then burned red. You think this is about self-pity. It's not. It's about accountability. About calling out a system that crushed people like my mother and would have done the same to my wife if I hadn't walked. And gotten rich doing it, Maher said coldly. It's always conveniently lucrative when you speak out, isn't it? The Harry took a long breath. Then, slowly, he said, You think everyone who takes a stand is in it for a check. Because that's all you see. You wouldn't recognize principle if it hit you in the face. Maher folded his arms. I can recognize it. I just haven't seen any from you. The air in the room felt frozen. Harry stood still for a moment, staring down the host with something between heartbreak and disgust. Then, his voice like ice. You know what this interview tells me, Bill. Everything I need to know about you, and nothing I didn't already know about myself. Maher tried to cut in. Harry? But Harry wasn't done. No, I'm talking now. You built a career mocking people who try to make change. You weaponize doubt and call it reason. You humiliate people for sport. You're not a truth teller, Bill. You're a showman. And the pain you exploit, that's your content. Maher's face darkened. At least I'm honest about being a showman. You pretend to be a humanitarian while signing multi-million-dollar deals with the very institutions you claim to reject. Harry had already started walking off. Over his shoulder. And I don't pretend to be a journalist while turning interviews into hit pieces. You want respect. Try earning it. Maher raised his voice. Where are you going, Harry? We're not finished. The Harry turned one final time. His voice cut like glass. Yes, we are. This interview's over, just like any respect I had for you or this platform. You can't just walk off. Watch me. And just like that, Harry disappeared off stage. Bill Maher stood alone at his desk, stunned. The audience was silent, shaken. The air in the studio had shifted. Something irreversible had happened. The cameras kept rolling for a few seconds longer, capturing Maher's rare moment of speechlessness. When he finally spoke, his voice was dry. Well, I guess that's one way to end an interview. Outro narration. This wasn't just another interview. It was a collision of worldviews, privilege vs. perception, legacy vs. liberation, satire vs. sincerity. A moment that redefined late-night television and left the world divided. What do you think? Did Harry walk out with dignity? Or was Maher just asking the hard questions no one else would? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more showdowns that shake the system.